everybody, acoustic version by John Mayer from the VH1 performance video. You heard a bit of it in the intro, so you know what we're getting into. First things first, take your pick and stick it between your fingers for later. The first part of the tune is finger pick. Later on, we do some strumming, so we kind of flip it into our thumb and forefinger when we need it later, but at first, for the finger picking, we kind of keep it there. I use my second and third finger to store it. I find it frees up these two fingers for finger picking. John Mayer seems to be able to do it between the first and second, so take your pick. Let's play through that slow, the first 4 bars. So the whole thing starts off with this 3-note G chord. We have our thumb at the 3rd fret of the low E, our second finger on B3, and our third finger on G4. And we do a piano attack, followed by the bass line, and then we get into these hammer-on, chordal hammer-ons and pull-offs. So what's happening there is we've got our first finger on G2, and we're holding that chord like we were before, and we're just kind of lifting off where we have to do these chordal hammer-ons. They're very quick, they're grace notes, so they're not slowly done, it's as quick as you can do it. It's kind of very country sounding. And what we're finding is the first hammer-on is from the 2nd fret to the 4th. Second hammer-on is from the 4th fret to the 5th fret, using the pinky. And then back to that intro chord again, plucking all 3 notes. Then we have the bass line, and then a little rundown. So one more time. What's happening there is we have a hammer-on, bass note, then we have a pull-off, and then a pull down, a slide from the 5th fret. So let's do that slow. Might be throwing more bass notes in there than normal, then just bear with me. Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. So slow one more time. Actually, that ending is... and that's all there is to say about that. Pretty much, to become comfortable with them, just do them. All the different combinations, you'll hear a bunch of them in this intro part. It's movable, and just think country music. So, going into the second part, we have some more chordal hammer-ons. That's actually a C. What we're doing is we're barring the 5th fret from the 5th string down, and we're hammering on from the 5th fret of the 5th string to the 7th fret. And we're kind of doing a piano attack with these 3 strings, the 5th, 4th, and 3rd, and then hammering on into the chord. And then he arpeggiates it, he kind of hits the bottom 2. And then he goes 1 string down and starts doing some little hammer-ons down there. And then back to the first one. Skips a note there. Okay, so once more, slow that part. These are measures 3 to 4. On the 5th fret of the 5th string. So let's do the whole thing, measures 1 to 4 slow. And that kind of sets you up for most of the technique you're going to see and have to be able to do. Yeah, the first 4 measures say a lot. Measures 5 to 8. slow, that'd be... The major difference there is, oh, okay, let's start from measure 5. This kind of thing. So it starts basically doing this 2-note slide, and I use my third finger on E5 and my second finger on G5. Slide it up 2 frets. Changing the fingering, I come down to E3 with my first finger, and then my second finger is fretting G4. Do that, so it's, and then we get right back into that lick, and we do a nice little rundown. That is kind of neat. Pull off. We do a hammer-on the 5th fret of the 4th string. Then we do this crazy hammer-on. Barring the 2nd fret of the D and G strings, we hammer on 1 note, the 5th fret of the D string. So let me just go through that slow again. So right from the top, the whole thing slow. Measures 5 and 6. Off there. After that, measures 7 and 8. We do similar stuff that we did before, but we're adding on this 8th fret on the B string, this B8. So we do that same chordal hammer-on, but we reach down and we hit this 8th fret on the B string. End off with this kind of barred 5th fret, 5th string, 3 strings down, and then we end off the measure with the low E before we go into the singing part. So let's do the whole thing, measures 5 to 6, slow. That's it. Sorry. Let's do that last bit over again. That's it. Measures 9 to 12. This is where he starts singing. This is where he goes, gravity. So slow, that's... So, not too much difference. Both the same chord. Then we get into that. That's the only real difference. Coming off of measure 10, we kind of end off with barring with the pinky and striking the D and A strings before going into a more subdued hammered on C chord. That's a bit different. So we do the hammer on from the chord from the 5th fret of the A string to the 7th fret. Then we do these 2-note chords. And the first one is basically just barring the 2 middle strings of the 5th fret. Fret, 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the D string. And then back to that rolled chord again. So slow, that measure 11 is... And then we go back to that, which we've seen before, ending off on this barred 5th string to the 3rd string. Measures 13 to 16. Slow. So we have some nice happening in there. That's a bit of a change up. Basically alternating with the first finger on G2 and then the pinky on D5. Going back into that. So from the top, slow. And then in measure 14 we have this. That's it. And then into the second part of the lick, similar to what we've seen before. That's a bit different. This part. Kind of pedaling off the 5th fret on the A string, and we go back to the measure 17 to 20. We're now in the chorus. Right off, we have this big chord. We got our thumb on the 5th fret of low E. We have our 3rd finger on D7, our 1st finger on G5, and our pinky on B8. And we're barring with the 1st finger E5. So, and we strum that whole thing, piano attack. Then we do this little arpeggio. And then strike it again, whole thing. And then go into this nice arpeggio. Again, the 2nd chord. We have our 2nd finger on A5, our 1st finger on D4, 3rd finger on G5, and pinky on B7. And we arpeggiate it like this. Let's do that part slow from the top. Measures 21 to 24. So we'll just talk about some of the stuff before we launch through a slow-mo version of it. We start off with this chord here, and that has our thumb on the 6th fret of the 6th string, our 2nd finger on the 8th fret of the D, our 1st finger on G7, our 2nd finger on B8. Now this root note isn't really played during the track, but I threw it on there. You might want to hit it just for fun. After that, we go into this. There's a little bit of a leading note we change from that chord to this one. We strike it piano attack and then arpeggiate it. And we actually strike 2 notes at the same time there in the 2nd pass. Right here we're hitting 2 notes. And then we have this leading note to go into this chord. And And this chord is second finger on A6, first finger on D5, pinky on G7, and the third finger on B6. And this is pretty sparse. You just kind of pull it once. That's all there is to that. One full pluck. You kind of hit a lot of pauses, and then the open A before moving to this last chord, which we've seen before, and we just arpeggiate that after. After that, we do a full chord there, and then we hit the 5th fret of the 5th string twice. After that, we have an open, slide up from the 2nd fret, muted strum, and then end off with the 3rd fret on the low E. So let's play that whole thing slow. There's that leading note. At this point, you flick your pick out because the very next chord is going to be a strum. Measures 25 to 28. So slow, that's just a broom handle grip, whole thing. And we're doing a hammer-on the B string from the 3rd fret to the 5th fret with our pinky. After that, in the next measure, we do a... So we fret the chord with the pinky on the 5th fret of the B. We lift it off to let the 3rd string B, 3rd fret B string sound, and then we end it off with the pinky on the 5th fret of the high E, so we get this going within the chord, and then an upstroke, kind of semi-open nothing strum to set us up for the next one, and then we go into this, and we have an interesting ending off with the 3rd fret on the low E to set us up for the next big power strum. So let's go through that slow. And that's all there is to say about that. It's the only true deviation is this thing. And that is your 1st finger on G5 and your 3rd finger on D7. And you just kind of slide it up. Ending off on this 3rd fret low E. Measures 29 to 32. So what's going on there? Same big broom handle G chord with that hammer on the B string with the pinky. Except at this point we introduce a new note. We actually go from the 5th fret of the B string, okay, 3rd fret of the B string, to the 5th fret, to the 5th fret of the G, and back open. So we're doing this, but within the context of that broom handle grip G chord. And then we, a couple more bass notes. That's kind of a neat thing. Same thing, pinky on the 5th fret of the B string. Lift it off, sound the 3rd fret of the B string. And then with our 2nd finger on G4, kind of do a slide down, but make it obvious. So those first two measures, slow. Then we go into this thing again. That's that chordal hammer-on thing. We have the pinky on the 8th fret of the B string for the add a bit of highness to it. And then for the last measure, you hear this kind of thing. We actually slide that 8th fret pinky down to the 7th fret. And then we lift it right off, so you hear the 5th fret of the B string. And end off with the thumb on the 5th fret of the 6th string. So let's do the whole thing slow. Measures 33 to 36 are the strummed chorus. It features some creative strumming, and I know I'm going to deviate from what I've got on the tab, so I'll try to stay true to the overall feel of it. The tab has every strum, upstroke, downstroke, note choice. That's all kind of what I heard on the audio, so you can use that as a master, but this is the overall feel of it. So we're doing that bar chord, thumb on E5, third finger on D7, first finger on G5, and pinky on B8. We're actually barring with the first finger E5 as well on the high E. And it's kind of a driving. Sometimes we're accenting notes like the bass notes. Coming up for the high E here, the high E 5th fret. And we switch into that next chord, which is second finger on A5, first finger on D4, third finger on G5, and pinky on B7. That rhythm is kind of another driving kind of. Let's get all set up here. So again, that's. We set up for a little prelude to the next chord by hitting the 6th fret on the 6th string. Again, there's a lot of muting going on. I don't talk about the muting enough sometimes, but our second finger is muting the low E, and our pinky is actually muting the high E. So we're strumming all 6 strings, but only sounding the 4 middle ones. Measures 37 to 40. That's the chord we've seen before. So our thumb on the root of the 6th string on the 6th fret. Then we have 2nd fret D8, first finger on G7, and then 3rd finger on B8. And we're strumming away. Move to our other chord. I'm not going to call this one out because we've seen all these by now. And the first time he hits this chord, he actually bars his pinky the last 2 strings on the 7th fret, and you hear it. You actually hear this high E 7th fret. The first time he strums it. Probably just an accident. And then And that little 2 and 3 note chord thing are just your first finger on E2, your second finger on B3, strum them together twice, and then shift up with your pinky on E7, your first finger on B3, and your second finger on G5. And you strum this 3 times. This one sounds really neat because the note values are far apart. So if you strum like full, you get this really nice sounding note values when you don't strum it all together. I believe he strikes them all at the same time in the 2. So one more time slow. What's going on there? Don't you hate it when you see a video on YouTube and they do the rhythm and the chorus and the verse and they get to the solo and they bail on you? I hate that! Never do that to you guys. Alright, that solo starts with a very lightly strummed chord with an alternate fingering. That's the G again, but in this case we're using our first finger to bar the 3rd fret on the first 2 top strings, and then our second finger is on G4, and our thumb is hitting the 3rd fret on the low E. And we go low, high, like that afterwards. We go low, high, low. And then the reason for the funny fingering is we're going to do a double hammer-on. So maintaining that chord shape, our 3rd finger is going to be hammering on G5, and our pinky is going to be hammering on B5, and then off. After that, we got a funny run-up. So our thumb is on the 3rd fret of the 6th string, and we do this kind of thing. So with the thumb on the 3rd, we take our 3rd finger, put it on the 5th fret, and slide up to the 7th fret of the low E. And then we have our first finger on the 5th fret of the A, and we do another slide from the 7th fret of the A to the 9th. And then we strike the 7th fret of the D. And then we have this barred hammer-on thing going. So with our first finger, we're barring the 7th fret from the D, G, and B strings. And we're doing a double hammer-on again. Our second finger is hammering on B8. At the same time, our 3rd finger is hammering on G9. And then back down again. Then we have our pinky on the 10th fret of the D, and then 7th fret of the D, and then 10th fret of the A, and kind of slid down to the 5th fret of the A. Let's do that first part slow. At this point, you're going to do a chord slide into that C chordal hammer-on we've done before. So instead of doing this, we're going to slide into it. Strum it twice. Aggressively strike the 7th fret of the G and turn it into a slide up to the 9th fret of the G. And we're actually striking the muted D string at this point. So, and then the next notes that follow are on the B string. 8th fret, 10th fret. And then we do this double slide, ending off with our first finger on the 8th fret of the B and our second finger on the 9th fret of the G. Kind of give that a little shake. We have a muted strum followed by an open A string. And then with our pinky, we are still maintaining this chord shape, this 2 chord shape down here. We grab the 12th fret of the high E. So we're fretting this on the top 3 strings. We actually mute the D string with our second finger and do a strum, getting that open A in there. and after that it's a double slide up again. Let me just make sure I've got that right. I can play the whole thing slow. Yeah, so I think we have that open A, and then striking that chord also with the open A, and with our third finger on E5 and our second finger on G5, we do a quick slide up 2 frets to the 7th fret, and then from the 7th fret down back to the 5th, and that ends off those measures of the solo. Measures 45 to 48. What's going on there is, let's do the whole thing slow first. Starting off with that gentle G again. Then we arpeggiate it. We hit B3 and then low E3, muted strum, and then all that is we're barring the 3rd fret B and E string, but we start off with the E7 here with the pinky. And then a series of slides and hammer-ons on the A and D strings. And then back to the G chord, we hit the low end of it, and then upstroke the high end, and then more slides and hammer-ons. At this point, we're actually doing an upstroke chord here, so let's do that from the start. You want to be sure to get that in there. Ending off with a slide from the 7th fret to the 2nd fret before moving into sliding C. Then we do a bar on the 5th fret from the A to the G strings, and then we're putting our 3rd finger on D7, so from the top. Actually, we do that twice, but the second time it's hammer-on. And then we do another hammer-on, and we do this. Ending with the thumb on the 5th fret on the low E. Let's try that again from the top, slow. Measures 49 and 52 are the 3rd chorus. We're just going to blow through this because it's just a slightly different strumming pattern. This part's the same. '53 to '56. Of 57. So, different strumming pattern. We end off with this. And then basically the sliding thing he does is from the 3rd fret to the 12th. And then go from the 3rd fret to the 10th. Strike the 10th. And then end with the 3rd fret. And then an upstroke, kind of timekeeping thing. And then you're ready for the next chord, which is a big G. And we're nearing the end. Measures 57 to 60. This is verse 3. Simple enough. In this case, we're ending off with that. We're hitting second fret is on G4, third finger is on, sorry, second finger is on G4, third finger is on D5, and we're sliding them up before going into this. And then a couple hurry up hammer-ons. And it ends off with basically just this barred 5th fret from the A string, D and G, and then an open string strum up to carry you into the next measure. Measures 61 to 64. One major difference there is this. So we strum the first chord, do 3 kind of lower ones, and then so we're barring the 3rd fret on the high E and B, and then second finger is on G4. So we strum that. And then we do that thing we've seen on the 5th fret, skip a string, 5th fret, so. And come back down again, so. So slow, that'd be. And then you carry on into the next measure. Get into this part. And then we add this 8th fret with the pinky on B8, carry it down to B7, and then accent B5, and we end off with an up down, like down up, with an open low E and a muted 5th string. So the whole thing's slow again. Measures 65 to 68. This is outro A. This is repeated twice. The only thing to be aware of is the use of the pinky on B5 and E5. So you'll see it in those 2 spots. After that, pretty straightforward. Measures 69 to 72. Here we have a slightly different strumming pattern. Here we have a neat thing. Near the tail end of that measure, we do a 3rd fret low E, 5th fret low E, and then a slide from the 2nd fret of the A to the 5th fret of the A, and at the same time we strum it with the open D, which is the same note as the fretted 5th fret A. So that's and then we go into that part we know already. And off of the low open E. Bar is 73 to 75, the end. So slow, it's the last two chords are basically the the hammered on chord, and the next one is just strummed, and that's the last note you hear. And just before that, the first two measures, different strumming pattern. Then we have this slight little run up in the second last measure. So basically it's that normal chord, that chord with the B5, and then an upstroke, and then the regular chord but really accenting the E3. So, and then an open A in there, and then the hammered on chord, and then the strummed chord, and then you was done. I hope you enjoyed the acoustic version of Gravity.